This was one of the funniest, most rewatchable experiences I've had in 2022 and is probably in my top 10 of the year, if not encroaching really close to it. Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. Famed Southern detective played by Daniel Craig Benoit Blanc travels to Greece for his latest case. This was written and directed by Rian Johnson and is a follow-up to the 2019 film, which is just called Knives Out. Let me describe my experience with this movie to you this way. I've watched this movie about 5 or 6 times in the last week. If that's any consolation that you should absolutely go and watch this movie on Netflix right now, don't waste any more time. Just go watch it. But if you want to know more, stick around to the end. There was really a lot to love in this movie. It is a really fun time. This is a crowd pleaser. This is an ideal movie to really watch with a ton of friends in your living room and have them all in for a whodunit night or play some games. Like, this movie really feels like an event, and I gotta give it a lot of props to Rian Johnson for pulling off something really awesome here. So let me get into what I think is the strongest aspect of the film, which is its comedy. Glass Onion is really funny. This movie isn't as quite as serious as the previous film in the Knives Out universe, we'll call it, was. And I thought it handled its own humor really well. There are quite a few really good one-liners. A lot of them are held by Daniel Craig as Benoit Blanc, and he is superb in this film as a character and through Daniel Craig's performance. But as someone who is really hard on movies for their humor, I really respect this movie for getting me to laugh a lot. And even on like my third and fourth viewings, I was still laughing at all the jokes and I kept finding more to laugh at. It was really awesome. For a movie that has serious subject matter like murder to get me to laugh and really get in on a lot of these jokes, I just thought to be really entertaining and just add a lot to the experience for me. And part of that is the way that it frames each of the characters throughout this whodunit mystery. You can see a lot of relevant cultural references, I guess, with these characters. Like, you see each of these characters and you're like, oh, I think I kind of can see somebody like that through popular culture or through my friend groups. I think the relevance of the characters to today is really what strengthens some of the comedy in the movie, although it isn't the sole reason for the movie being funny, because some of the one-liners are just phenomenal and timeless in their own right. Which will bring me to the next aspect of this movie, which is, I think this movie might run itself dangerously on this line of perhaps becoming dated as time goes on. Between the way it frames these characters and kind of paints a caricature of people, and also the references to the COVID-19 pandemic, I think that over time there's two schools of thought here. One, it could dangerously date the movie as time goes on, or two, I guess it could be framed as a sort of period piece, a really recent period piece that is kind of documenting slowly over time how people behave during the COVID-19 pandemic. One thing I want to make clear, this movie doesn't take the COVID-19 pandemic and it doesn't make it its main subject matter. Absolutely not. In fact, it really only refers to it for like maybe the first 15-20 minutes and then you're moving on from it. I just thought it was a really interesting choice by Rian Johnson to write the movie in this sort of guise, and I think it'll be really interesting to see how people look at it as the years go on. Having said that, and kind of connecting it back to the funny parts of this movie, I thought it was really interesting the way Rian Johnson tied some of the aspects of the pandemic to the comedy in this movie, and it made for some really good laughs as well. So there's some fun in there to be had. It's not all serious. I want to talk about the bit of a spin that this movie has on the whodunit genre. This movie isn't necessarily your formulaic whodunit. Like, of course, there is a murder. You have to solve who did the murder. However, the movie adds some twists to it, which I really appreciated and really freshened up the experience for me. If this was just a typical whodunit with some comedy sprinkled in, I think this movie would have still been good. But that additive spin, which I can't really give away too much because of spoilers, it really added something to the experience that took this movie from good to great and just infinitely rewatchable. Like, I had so much fun peeling back the layers, no pun intended, of this movie with each additional rewatch, and I'll probably watch it again today. And I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about how well the cast did in this movie. Everybody in this film pretty much crushed it. Daniel Craig was the standout for me personally. He has really embodied Benoit Blanc, and it's really funny seeing him go from Englishman James Bond to Southern Louisiana man Benoit Blanc. He really pulls it off quite well, and it's amazing to see him be really funny. Like, it just really works. The other standout for me was Janelle Monáe, who really plays, I guess, two different characters in this movie. I can't give away anything in that regard either because spoiler territory, but she crushes both of her roles. And honestly, the rest of the cast really serves themselves. This is really an all-star cast, and this movie does something that's very hard for films to do, which is still be a great movie, but also be filled in the room with stars. Normally, when I see a cast that's just stacked like this one is, I get a little concerned that the movie's going to get too overstuffed, oversaturated. But no, this movie really finds a way to make it work. Everyone shines in their own regard and really makes their characters their own, and it just really makes the experience awesome. The final thing I'll touch upon, the runtime. This movie is very long, over 2 hours. I believe it's close to 2 hours, 30 minutes. I just double checked, 2 hours, 19 minutes. And to this movie's credit, you really never feel the length of the runtime because you're having so much fun. Like, this movie's always got something constantly to keep your mind occupied, to keep you entertained, to keep you laughing, to keep you wondering who the killer is, how Benoit Blanc's going to solve this, the different curves that it throws at you that I talked about earlier. So that 2 hours and 19 minutes really feels like an hour 45 minutes, and it really moves along at a nice steady cadence. The one thing I will put a disclaimer on in that regard is that when you finally get to the murders actually happening, you're already like an hour into the movie. That can be a little off-putting. However, I thought within the context of the entire movie experience that it actually kind of worked. It might work for some of you. For others, you might be sitting there wondering, oh my God, are we going to get to the murder yet? Your mileage will vary. Friends, in the end, I'm going to have to give Knives Out a Glass Onion an 8 out of 10. I thought this was a great watch and I highly recommend seeing it. This was one of the funniest, most rewatchable experiences I've had in 2022 and is probably in my top 10 of the year, if not encroaching really close to it. Invite some friends over, have a great night, watch it, enjoy it. Friends, thank you so much for watching another movie review. If you like this or thought it was helpful, I'd be honored if you consider clicking the like button, clicking these end cards up above, or the links down in the description below for your viewing pleasure. Once again, I've been Bryson. Until next time, have a great day.